I hope everyone can see my screen. Emily, can you see it?
Yep, good to go.
Okay, awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Hanna Caridad. I'm the registered dietitian over at Smilow Cancer Center in Trumbull at the Park Avenue office. And I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit today about nutrition for cancer survivorship. So we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition, about physical activity, and a bunch of fun stuff. Let's see. Okay. So the goals for tonight's presentation, we're obviously going to be discussing the connections between nutrition, lifestyle, and cancer risk. I'm going to try and help you guys to understand the basics of healthy nutrition and improving the quality of your diet. We're going to talk about physical activity and the recommendations for exercise and cancer survivorship. And we're going to be talking about some nutrition-related myths and some fad diets. So let's get to it, right? So this is almost the #1 question that I get from a lot of my patients. Can cancer be prevented? So in the United States, an estimated 40 out of 100 women and 38 out of 100 men will develop cancer at some point during their lifetime. So while genetics and social and environmental factors definitely play a role in cancer development, the modifiable risk factors that we can control are smoking and tobacco use, sun exposure, and indoor tanning, so using tanning beds or UV tanning methods. And then the last one that we're going to be talking about is weight, physical activity, which can be nutrition and alcohol definitely have a part in that. So, okay. Also, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. There will be a section, a little bit of time later for hopefully that I can answer your questions. Okay, so diet and activity guidelines to reduce cancer risk have been updated yearly by the American Cancer Society. So staying at a healthy weight and being physically active is very important for reducing your risk of cancers. So the American Cancer Society does say that excess body weight, which is, we're talking about excess body fat, can contribute to about 1 in 5 cancer cases. So having excess body fat raises a person's risk of getting up to 13 different types of cancers. So having excess body fat can be caused by poor nutrition, physical inactivity, and excess alcohol consumption. So really, those are the 3 things that impact our weight the most. So every year, the American Institute for Cancer Research, which is the AICR, that's kind of how I'll talk about them throughout this presentation, they release some guidelines to help prevent cancer and reduce cancer risk. So the #1 recommendation that they have every single year is trying to be at a healthy weight. So trying to maybe not get your body weight within the normal BMI range, but having your body fat percentage be as low as possible. So that's really what they mean by being a healthy weight. Being physically active every single day, eating a diet that's rich in whole grains, vegetables, fruits, and we'll definitely talk about, more of what that looks like. Limiting your consumption of red meat and processed meats, limiting your consumption of sugar sweetened beverages. So these are things like soda, juice, and trying to stick with mostly water and unsweetened beverages. Limiting consumption of fast foods. So things like processed foods that are very high in saturated fat, sugars, and oils. Limiting alcohol consumption. So the American Institute for Cancer Research and the American Cancer Society both agree that limiting alcohol consumption as much as possible is best. And then for mothers, breastfeeding if you can, and then trying to follow the recommendations of your doctors and of your dietitian after receiving a cancer diagnosis, and not leaning on things like fad diets or supplementation to meet your nutritional needs. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, the impact of excess body fat. So being overweight does not inherently increase your risk of cancer. So we know that some people have a higher body weight because they have more muscle. And that's great. We always want people to have more lean body mass. However, having excess body fat definitely increases your cancer risk and your risk of developing certain chronic diseases that are related to poor nutrition, physical inactivity. So for women after menopause, most of the estrogen, which is a hormone produced, comes from body fat tissue, so our adipose tissue. And excess estrogen can lead to increased insulin production, which is also a hormone. And this can increase our risk of developing some types of cancer. So these are things like hormone positive breast cancer. So really, we are looking to eat in a way that reduces our insulin levels as much as possible. So this is another cool graphic from the American Institute for Cancer Research. They highlight some of the causes of weight gain and what you can do to minimize your excess body fat. So contributors to excess body fat can be things like fast food, screen time for both adults and children, drinking a lot of sugar sweetened beverages, eating mostly a Western diet, which we'll kind of talk about in a couple minutes, what that looks like and kind of what it's starting to evolve more towards. But things that can help to reduce your body fat can be things like walking, physical activity, foods containing a lot of fiber, kind of leaning towards more of Mediterranean type diet, and having been breastfed. That's another one. So what should I eat? This is the nutrition part of this presentation. Okay, the old American plates. So this is what Americans have been eating for years and years and years. Kind of around the 70s and 80s. This is maybe a plate that you would have seen. So large portions of red meat, usually beef or pork, were usually seen in a typical American meal. And then you have a portion of starchy vegetables. So this can be peas, corn, and then you have a large portion of a starch. So this is usually potatoes or pastas or rice or anything that is a starch, but they don't always have a lot of fiber. So the old American plate is very, very high in starches and saturated fat, and kind of lacking in fiber and healthier fats. So this is kind of where we're trying to move towards. So on the left-hand side, you'll see kind of a midpoint between the old American plate and what we're trying to go more towards. So we have a smaller portion of the red meat, a normal sized portion of the white rice, and then our green beans. So now we're starting to incorporate more non-starchy vegetables, which are our greens, any vegetable that's not a potato, corn, or peas. Those are our non-starchy vegetables. So we're trying to move from the plate on the left to more of the plates on the right hand side. So on the top right, you'll see that there's a portion of a leaner protein, the chicken, and then you'll see there is a normal sized portion of the quinoa, which is our grain. And then the plate is kind of filled with different non-starchy vegetables and some fruit too. We have our tomatoes. So we have that upper right-hand side is a very good option for a meal. And then we have the bottom right, which is kind of a one pot stir fry kind of meal. And this can be great as well. So you still have your starch, you have your rice, you have your chicken or whatever meat is in the stir fry dish, and then you have your vegetables and you have some mushrooms in there, so lots of flavors. Um, and we're really trying to gear our meals more towards how many different colors can you get on that plate. So how many different fruits and vegetables can you get in there? So now I'll talk a little bit about the plate approach. So the USDA always releases guidelines to, what our diet should be made of. And I think maybe some of you remember the food pyramid, where the bottom part of the pyramid was our grains, right? And it told us that we should be eating 8 to 10 servings of grains every single day. So now they've kind of moved more towards a plate style of eating. And you can see on the left-hand side that half the plate is fruits and vegetables. And this is kind of where we're trying to move towards as far as what our plate should look like. So on the right, you'll see a nice fun graphic. It says have plenty of fruits and vegetables, all different colors, a lean source of protein. You'll see a quarter of the plate at the top is a protein source. So you have fish, eggs, beans, a lean meat like chicken or pork, and then a whole grain. So this could be whole grain bread, quinoa, brown rice, whole grain pasta. And really the bottom line is to just try and get as many colors on that plate as possible. So try to eat a rainbow. That's what we tell people. And all of the different colors of fruits and vegetables have many different benefits, many different nutrients in them. So the more colors, the better. So this is kind of what I was saying earlier, vary your fruits and veggies. Color matters for cancer prevention. So for cancer specifically, we want to choose a variety of different plant foods because all of those different colors have different vitamins and minerals and things called phytochemicals that help to serve as antioxidants, which help protect us against cancer. So the new American plate, the plates that I was kind of going through earlier, highlight making half your plate non-starchy vegetables and fruits. So trying to do that and making it a bunch of different colors will really increase your chances of getting all of those various nutrients. So another thing that I want to highlight is trying to fill up on fiber. So plant foods offer dietary fiber, which are the undigestible parts of the plant foods that help you to feel more full. They regulate your digestive system and they can help you lose weight because they are usually lower in calories, but they're higher in volume. So eating enough fiber daily can really help reduce your cancer risk just by keeping you at more of a healthy weight. And, all of the foods that are very high in fiber tend to be more of your fruits and vegetables. So there is strong evidence to support that increased fiber intake can help to decrease the risk of colorectal cancer specifically. So trying to get that 21 to 25 grams of dietary fiber for women and 30 to 38 grams of dietary fiber for men is very important. So other foods that aren't fruits and vegetables that are very, very high in fiber are things like whole grain bread or brown rice, or popcorn is very high in dietary fiber. When it comes to fiber, you can almost never have too much. So, other high fiber foods are things like avocados, raspberries, beans, lentils, green peas, oatmeal. All of these things really serve to help keep us full and, feeling satisfied throughout the day. So we're not snacking later at night. So the importance of protein. I love talking about protein with all of my patients. So when patients are going through active treatment for cancer, dietary protein is so, so important. And that is because we want our patients to stay as strong as possible while they're going through treatment. So protein is found in both animal and plant-based forms. So you have our things like fish, beef, chicken, eggs. Those are animal-based proteins. And then we have our plant-based proteins, things like nuts, beans, seeds, things like that. So protein is made of amino acids, which are vital in maintaining our muscle. So our lean body mass. And the more lean body mass we have, it is associated with better outcomes during cancer treatment, but also protein is very important for after treatment as well. So I'll kind of go over that in the next slide. So eating more protein can help you maintain your weight and even lose weight after treatment. So protein helps to make us feel more full, more satisfied, kind of like fiber does as well. And this leads to having fewer cravings for higher fat or higher sugar snacks or meals later in the day. So whenever somebody comes to me, a patient comes to me and they say, Hannah, I want to lose weight, or I want to get at a healthier body fat percentage, or I want to reduce my chances of cancer reoccurring. I always ask them, okay, what are you eating? And usually they'll tell me, well, maybe they don't eat breakfast, or maybe they eat breakfast, but it's some cereal or a piece of toast, which is fine. But whenever I hear this from a patient, I always say, okay, well, let's try to maybe add a source of protein to your breakfast so you stay more full during the day and you're less likely to feel the need to snack on sugary things or chips or snack foods later on in the day. So eating more protein helps to not only build our lean body mass, but helps us feel more full and satisfied. And again, having more lean body mass helps us to burn more calories when we're at rest. So these are some examples of some foods that help to fight cancer. So I always tell people, no one food has been shown to protect against cancer by itself. So any diet or anyone that tells you, oh, eat only this food and you'll never have cancer. Unfortunately, that's just not true. And I tell my patients all the time, I wish I had a magic cure. I wish I had a magic food that I could tell people to eat that you would never get cancer again. But unfortunately, it's more about the whole diet, the whole picture. So these are just some examples of some foods that are really just are packed with extra nutrients in them that can help cancer risk. So things like berries have lots of vitamin C, things like resveratrol, which is an antioxidant. Berries are very high in that, so that helps to protect against cancer. And they also are loaded with fiber, so they can help us feel more full. And then you have our beans and legumes. So that's things like kidney beans, black beans, chickpeas, lentils. And these are also loaded with soluble fiber. And they're also loaded with protein. So they're kind of a superfood in that way. Then you have your cruciferous vegetables, which is the third picture. So you have things like broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kale, things like that. And those vegetables are loaded with things like vitamin C again. They have lots of fiber, so helps us to stay full throughout the day and helps us to regulate our bowel movements as well. And then you have things like flaxseed and chia seeds, which are also really high in the fiber again. And they're also very high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are very anti-inflammatory, good for your heart. And flax seeds also contain a compound called lignans that serve as an antioxidant, and they are very cancer protective. So I always put ground flaxseed in my oatmeal in the morning, and it really it helps me to stay full and feeling just really good throughout the day. So number one, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Water is so important. It's very, very important to be hydrated throughout the day because every cell and every part of our body depends on water to perform its essential functions. So regulating our body temperature, transporting oxygen throughout our body, controlling our heart rate and our blood pressure. That's all controlled by how hydrated you are. And when somebody's going through treatment for active cancer, whether it's radiation or chemotherapy or surgery, water is so important to help our bodies heal and to help us fight off, you know, to help us fight the cancer. So after treatment, when you're, trying to figure out what do I eat for just general healthy nutrition, I always tell people water is the most important thing. So the average person definitely needs about 1 fluid ounce per half a pound of body weight. So if you are a person that weighs 140 pounds, you need probably about 70 ounces of water throughout the day. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some foods that maybe have a bad reputation when it comes to cancer. So things like red meat. So red meat has been kind of talked about in cancer research when it comes to nutrition. So findings about the link between red meat intake and cancer risk are definitely controversial. Red and processed meat intake is associated with increased risk of some cancers, so colon, rectal cancer. And this, I think, is because the Western diet has always been, from what we've seen for years and years, very high in red meat, which is also very high in saturated fat. So we've seen that colon and rectal cancer are kind of the two that are increased when you have too much red meat. So, however, with this said, red meat does provide a great source of protein, iron, things like zinc and vitamin B12, which can help prevent anemia. So it's all about moderation. A lot of these things are very dependent on how much are you having. So the American Institute for Cancer Research recommends consumption of no more than 12 to 18 ounces of red meat per week. So when I talk to patients, I try to tell them any more than maybe 10 to 12 ounces, per week. I think not a lot of us are eating any more than that, but there are people who have been eating lots of red meat for their whole life. So sometimes this is a big change for them. So the bottom line is to try to get more lean sources of protein like chicken or fish, or try to even do plant-based protein. So I tell people, if you've gone your whole life eating red meat, try to do 1 day a week where you do a plant-based protein, whether that's beans or lentils or a plant-based burger or something like that. There are plenty of ways to get lots of protein and to meet your protein needs while eating plant-based. So that brings us to dairy and cancer risk. So dairy is another food that has kind of been under the microscope when it comes to cancer risk. So there is not enough evidence to support that milk or dairy can increase risk of cancer alone by itself. Low or non-fat dairy products contain essential proteins, vitamins and minerals like calcium, which help protect our bone density, and are really important for muscle maintenance as well. So most people in the United States, particularly women over the age of 50, are actually deficient in vitamin D and calcium, which can cause things like osteoporosis or osteopenia, which are disorders of bone density. So it's really important that you're getting enough of these nutrients, whether that's from dairy or from other sources. What we do know is dairy is the best source of these nutrients. So it is almost a little bit more difficult when you're not eating these things. What we do know is that excessive intake of high fat dairy products like butter, whole milk, cream, ice cream, this can lead to weight gain, which can theoretically put you at an increased risk of cancer. And that is because your body fat percentage is higher. So, like I said, going back to the earlier slides, having an increased body fat percentage can be put you more at risk for cancer, but not any one food can. So, okay, this is, if not the number one, maybe the number two question that I get from particularly my breast cancer survivors, confusion around the intake of soy and cancer. So soy products are things like soybeans, tofu, tempeh, soy milk, anything that comes from the soy plant. This has puzzled people for years and years and years. There's so much new research being done on soy and cancer risk. And many have thought that the intake of soy foods has put people at an increased risk of cancer because it contains isoflavones called phytoestrogens. And the thought was that these phytoestrogens act like estrogen in the body, which, like I was talking about earlier, were thought to increase your insulin levels and thus put you at an increased risk of developing cancer. However, the American Cancer Society and the AICR both have shown that the evidence doesn't point to any dangers of eating soy foods in people, and the health benefits are actually appearing to outweigh the risks. So soy is a great source of fiber and protein and can stand in as a plant-based source of protein. So this can help with weight management and lean body mass maintenance. So I'll leave you with this. The director of nutritional epidemiology at the American Cancer Society states that the only thing that cancer survivors should probably steer clear from are soy supplements. So these are sources of concentrated soy, like soy protein powders or protein bars that have soy protein in them. These are much more concentrated forms of the isoflavones called phytoestrogens. So if you're going to stay away from anything, try to maybe limit those. But eating things like tofu or soybeans or drinking soy milk are perfectly safe and perfectly okay. So coffee and cancer risk. I know everybody loves their coffee. Can you still drink coffee and reduce your cancer risk? Absolutely. So coffee was thought to pose an increased risk of cancer because it has a compound in it called acrylamide that is produced in the bean roasting process. So when the beans are roasted and getting ready to be sent out as coffee beans, this compound is produced. So the research has shown that no links have been established between acrylamide in food and cancer risk in humans. So coffee is perfectly fine. When people ask me about caffeine intake, specifically as it relates to when they're going through active treatment and I'm trying to encourage adequate hydration, I tell people, make sure that you're not having any more than maybe 400 milligrams of caffeine in a day, which is about 4 to 5 standard cups of coffee. And that's, I think, a lot for most people. I always tell people try and drink more water, try to drink more decaffeinated beverages, just to make sure that you're staying adequately hydrated. But coffee does, in some ways, offer many health benefits. So it can help with digestion. I know that people like to drink coffee in the morning because it helps them have a healthy bowel movement every day, and it helps to increase focus. So if you want to drink coffee, by all means, just make sure that it's not excessive. All right. So alcohol. Alcohol has been shown to increase your risk for many different types of cancers. So specifically mouth and throat cancers, esophageal cancer, breast cancer, liver cancer, cancers of the GI system, and colorectal cancer have all been shown to, you're at an increased risk for these cancers if you drink excess alcohol. So, the recommendations from the AICR really say to try to not drink alcohol when you're going through treatment or to decrease your risk of cancer. But if you do drink and you have it as a healthy part of your diet, try to limit it to 2 drinks for men and 1 drink for women daily. So this is kind of a fun graphic. Food is not just about, what's on our plate. It's about the whole experience, and nutrition really does, it's evolving every day, and we're seeing more and more that people are trying to be mindful while they're eating, and not only with their choices, but with how they're eating. So I always tell people, try to do things like turning off your devices and engaging your senses when you're eating. Try to look at your plate and say, okay, how many different colors can I count? And what is the smell that's coming from this meal? What is it? What memories does it bring back for me? And I think doing this and practicing mindful eating can really ease stress and anxiety around meal times, which I know a lot of people, specifically cancer survivors, have a lot of stress and anxiety around meal times and around food. So the benefits of practicing mindful eating really, are kind of limitless, and they help to establish a good relationship with your food, which is very, very important. Okay, how should I move? The importance of physical activity for cancer prevention. So physical activity is any sort of movement, exercise even. So any way that you can move your body. So research shows that regular physical activity or exercise is safe and beneficial for people in active cancer treatment and in cancer survivorship. So exercise and physical activity can help you maintain your weight. It can help keep your muscles strong, can improve focus and sleep quality, and it can help to improve our mental health as well. So I know that there was a previous section of this series about stress and about helping us improve our mental health and our sleep, and physical activity is a big part of that. It can really help to lessen feelings of anxiety and depression, and with the nicer weather outside, I'm sure that going for a walk is only beneficial. So physical activity is very, very important. So the recommendations for physical activity from the American Institute of Cancer Research recommend 150 minutes of either moderate intensity or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise every week. So this not only reduces your cancer risk, but helps prevent weight gain and prevent other chronic diseases as well. So things like heart disease, diabetes. And when you break it down, I know 150 minutes kind of sounds like a lot to some people, but this is really just 30 minutes, 5 days a week. So if you can get out and walk around your neighborhood, or if you can ride a bike, or try to swim at your local pool if you're looking for something a little bit lower impact, this is a going and swimming or taking a water aerobics class, that can be a great way to get active. And I know that lots of people like listening to fun music, so taking a Zumba class might be for you. I know I always love doing Zumba. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about something that is a little bit, that is very, very close to my heart. I love weightlifting, and I've been doing it for years and years. So resistance exercise is anything that puts your body under some sort of load. So strength training, or weight training. So this is anything like weightlifting or yoga. Pilates kind of falls into this resistance exercise sphere. So strength training helps to increase and maintain our lean body mass. It helps to decrease our cancer risk by keeping you strong during and after treatment. And it also has been shown to reduce our blood sugar levels and promote better insulin sensitivity, which is good for decreasing your risk for diabetes. So strength training may not be the most effective way to lose body fat, but it definitely helps to build our muscle and to regulate our blood sugar. So definitely lots of benefits when it comes to weight training. So this is just a fun graphic from the American Institute for Cancer Research. Physical activity doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to get a fancy gym membership or take expensive classes at all. It can really just be going for a walk. 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week brings you to that 150 minutes. So try to get at least 30 minutes, but for more protection, they say try to do between 45 and 60 minutes every day. And really being physically active can reduce your risk of breast cancer, colon cancer, endometrial cancer. And it really just helps to improve mental clarity and improve our sleep as well, which, no bad things here when it comes to physical activity. Okay, fad diets and cancer-related myths. Let's start busting them. So number one question when it comes to fad diets or cancer-related myths, does sugar feed cancer? This is a question I get all the time from patients. The short answer to this question is no. So all of our cells in our body and our brains use sugar or glucose, which is the most basic form of sugar, to stay alive and to perform our daily functions. So glucose is definitely necessary in our bodies. And foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, all contain sugar. When they're digested and broken down in the body, they all become glucose. So eating these foods does not make it more likely that you will get cancer. The body needs these foods, and there's really no reason to restrict your intake of things like vegetables, fruits, whole grains. However, having excess body fat, like we talked about earlier, can increase your cancer risk. And you might have excess body fat from eating too many things that have refined sugars in them, things like candy or cookies or dessert foods, things like that. Those things are very high in refined sugars and can theoretically increase your body fat, which can then increase your risk for cancer. Okay, so fad diets. So what is a fad diet? Any diet that is usually aimed at weight loss and usually restricts one or more of the essential food groups. So common themes with fad diets include rapid weight loss, limitations or restrictions on whole food groups. So diets that limit all fats or all carbohydrates or all sources of protein, or restrict your intake to just one type of food. Those are fad diets. Those are diets that are usually promise dramatic changes in your weight in a short period of time without the need for regular physical activity. So fad diets are very dangerous. And I know that a lot of the time cancer survivors and cancer patients, they want something that they can kind of go off of when it comes to nutrition. And when there's promises of eat this food and it'll help cure your cancer, it can be very misleading and very harmful to people. So one of the, not a fad diet, but one of the diets that I get asked a lot about is, do I need to eat a totally vegan or vegetarian diet? And so to start, a vegetarian diet restricts all meat from animals. So some people will still eat things like eggs or dairy products. And a vegan diet restricts all food that comes from animals. So this includes eggs or dairy. So the short answer to this is no, you don't need to follow a totally vegetarian or vegan diet to minimize your risk for cancer. However, what I tell people is you should try to eat more of a plant-forward diet. This goes back to trying to make half your plate fruits and vegetables, trying to eat more sources of, more colors on your plate, like we were talking about, more plant foods, offer more benefits than having a diet that's very high in meats or starches. So trying to prioritize our plant foods is a good thing. But do you need to have a diet that's just these plant foods and doesn't have anything else? No. Okay. So recently, this is a diet that I have been getting a lot of questions about. What do you think of it? And so the keto or Atkins diet. So the keto or Atkins diet really started as a way to decrease symptoms of childhood epilepsy. So there was a doctor in, I think, the 80s who implemented a very low carbohydrate diet for children with epilepsy, and it showed, in some cases to reduce the chance of seizures. But now the keto diet has really been kind of moving towards promises of weight loss. So this diet severely restricts your carbohydrate foods, so things like fruits, vegetables, starches, with the intention of decreasing the body's glucose energy usage and using ketones from fat as a fuel source. So it is unlimited in fat consumption. Usually about 70 to 80% of the calories that a person is consuming will come from fat sources. Completely restricts intake of certain fruits, vegetables, and grain products. So usually foods that are not allowed on this diet are certain fruits. Potatoes usually are not allowed. Things like rice or bread or dessert foods like cupcakes, cookies, all of those are kind of very much restricted on this diet. So why is this diet very dangerous? This diet severely restricts carbohydrate or glucose intake, which is the body and the brain's preferred fuel source. So it can cause deficiencies in vital nutrients, such as your B vitamins or electrolytes, which are often found in these foods. So it's also a very low fiber diet, which because fiber is found in a lot of plant foods and whole grains and legumes, this can really impact your digestion when you're not getting enough of these foods. It can make digestion very hard. I found that a lot of people who try this diet become either very constipated or, feel like they're not having regular bowel movements, which is not a good thing. It can also potentially increase your blood lipid levels, so your cholesterol, your triglycerides, which can then put you at an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, which we don't want. And also, this diet is not sustainable. It's very, very difficult to not eat carbohydrates without continued guidance and accountability. And whenever I have somebody ask me about this diet, I say, okay, well, think about, do you want to wake up every single day and have to restrict the foods that you want to eat? And do you think that this is a sustainable way to live? And most of the time, the answer is no. So this is another fad diet. Intermittent fasting has been gaining a lot of recognition in the media recently. So what is intermittent fasting? This is a diet that severely limits calorie intake during certain times of the day. So, or during even full days of the week. So somebody might have a window of time that they're allowed to eat maybe 6 or 8 hours during the day. Some people won't start eating until maybe 11 or 12 o'clock and then stop eating around 6 or 8. The idea is that intermittent fasting will help decrease appetite and thus help the dieter lose weight. But there are definitely reasons why this diet is not indicated. So why is this diet dangerous? Like the keto diet, it's not sustainable. After not eating for a long period of time, you are more likely to overeat or binge on foods following a fasting period. It can dysregulate your hunger hormones, which are, very resilient, yes, but they definitely can be impacted by going long periods without eating. Skipping meals and limiting calories can cause dramatic weight loss in a very short period of time. And usually, when somebody comes to me and they say, oh, I've lost 5 pounds or 10 pounds in a week, usually that's muscle mass. It starts by you lose a lot of body water, and generally after that comes your muscle, which we don't want. So it can also lead to abnormal blood sugar and electrolyte levels because you're going kind of long periods without eating and then long periods, with eating. So it can really bring your blood sugar levels kind of all over the place. Other fad diets that I won't necessarily go too far into, but I'll mention things like the alkaline diet, going totally gluten-free unless you have celiac disease. So, if you have diagnosed celiac disease, maybe you should try to avoid gluten. But for weight loss, it's not, really indicated. Things like the South Beach or flat belly diet. I know that, that was very popular in the early 2000s and the 90s. The raw food diet, so only eating foods that are raw, not cooked. Usually this is a vegan diet. Any juice cleanses or anything with the word detox. So any diet where they want you to buy, large quantities of juice or smoothies or anything where you're not eating whole foods, you can know that that's more of a fad diet. So the Mediterranean diet, this is not a fad diet. The Mediterranean diet is really just a healthy way of eating. This style of eating encourages consumption of all fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, legumes, fish, and other lean proteins, and healthy fats like olive oil. It limits red meat to a very minimal or moderate consumption and highlights the benefits of limited or moderate alcohol consumption. So the Mediterranean diet really was developed in efforts to reduce heart disease risk, which, some people think, oh, you can drink a glass of red wine every night and that helps to reduce our risk of cardiovascular disease. And that's kind of where the Mediterranean diet, where their recommendations are. For cancer, we like to tell people to try to stay away from alcohol, but limited or moderate alcohol consumption is fine. This way of eating can definitely lead to healthy weight management, lower cholesterol, better glucose control, and definitely a clearer mind. I feel like the Mediterranean diet is very high in fruits and vegetables, so you're getting all those different colors, all those different antioxidants and micronutrients, like we like to call them. So the picture on the left is kind of a typical meal that you might find as part of the Mediterranean diet. You have a nice piece of fish, some lemon on top, and some asparagus, which is a nice spring vegetable. So should be seeing more of those in store. So these are the sources that I used for this presentation. And thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to check the chat. Okay. What is your take on the blood type diet? So I haven't heard a lot about the blood type diet. I'm not super sure. But I do know that, as I think as long as you're eating, a general healthy diet, trying to eat lots of fruits and vegetables, you're probably in a good place. So I'll try to do more research on that though for you. Let's see. Does black tea have the same benefits as coffee? That's a great question. So black tea does have some caffeine in it, which can help with digestion and regulating your bowel movements. So I mean, they have different nutrients. Black tea, I think, has things called tannins in them, which can be beneficial, but so different, but similar for caffeine. How do you feel about juicing daily 60% vegetable, 40% fruit? Well, if this is a way that you feel like you can get your fruit and vegetable intake in during the day, then by all means, putting fruits and vegetables in a smoothie. The one thing that I will say about juicing is that you're not getting all of that fiber that comes from eating a whole fruit or a whole vegetable. So, really what I recommend is, just eating your fruits and vegetables. But, juicing can be fine if you are on the go or looking for like a quick snack. Let's see. I heard that in order for the body to do what it needs to do for your muscles, older people need higher amounts of protein per meal. Can you talk about this? Absolutely. So as we age, we do, and with cancer as well, we do need more protein. And whenever I'm looking at somebody who is aging, I like to set their protein needs a little bit higher. So generally, you want to eat the same size meal, maybe just try to make it, more protein than maybe your starches, like your rice or your pasta or your potato or anything like that. Try to have it be a bigger proportion of your plate, but still focus on those fruits and vegetables. I've heard that barbecue char is not good for cancer. Is that true? So we like to tell people to try and not, burn your food or overcook your food. The research is limited, but it does point to, try not to overly char your food. There's a study that indicate that women who are breast cancer survivors who went 12 to 14 hours between dinner and breakfast had a 13% risk reduction in recurrence. Time restricted eating does have benefits. Okay. Any benefits to black seed oil? So I definitely don't recommend having any sort of like extraneous supplementation in your diet. Black seed oil, is one of these supplements that the research is not super conclusive. So, I would say just try to stick to the whole foods. What do you think about hemp seed powder as an add-in, like flax and chia seeds? Absolutely. Hemp seeds are very similar to flax and chia seeds. And, they can really be very high in omega-3s and things like that. So yeah, hemp seed is great. All right. There's also a question in the Q&A. Let's see. Oh. What about these collagen forward diets? So collagen is just another type of protein. So this is something that people have been adding to things like their coffee or smoothies. So if you want to get a little bit more protein in your diet, definitely, adding collagen is fine. The one thing I will say is that it acts like any protein, in your diet. So it's really just some, added protein. Are there any foods or supplements that you would recommend to help with hair growth? So hair hair and your nails are very dependent on both your protein intake and intake of things like biotin. So biotin can be found in your plant foods, in things like cereals or whole grain foods. So there are ways to get lots of biotin in your diet. However, you know, you can take a supplement if that's something that you want to do. Let's see. Mm. Do you have any suggestions for getting rid of a metallic taste that comes from treatment? This is a question that I get all the time. Taste changes are a big part of certain chemos, and unfortunately, there are side effects. So, something that I tell people is to just make sure that your food is seasoned with things like herbs and you know, garlic and things like lemon can be very helpful. Another thing that I have heard anecdotally is things like ginger or peppermint can really help with offsetting these metallic tastes. Another thing that you can do is eating with plastic utensils can be very helpful in reducing that metallic taste as well. Does taking vitamin C supplement help? So like I said, I would, you know, try to get your vitamin C mostly from food sources. So vitamin C is found in, you know, is found in things like citrus fruits and vegetables, and it is very available in many different foods. So I would say, you know, you don't really need to take a supplement. You know, and I would talk with your doctor if you're deficient in something in, you know, like vitamin C or something like that, then that's something that you could talk with your doctor about, but there's plenty of vitamin C in foods. C. Okay. I think we are all set. Emily, are you all set? Oh, let's see. How do you feel about cannabis oil along with treatment? Um, I have not had very much experience with cannabis derivatives, but I think that if it improves your appetite, then you know, it's worth trying. It's worth you know, looking more into for sure. Is this presentation recorded? Yes, yes, it will be recorded and it will be posted to the YouTube. Okay. All right, everybody, thank you so much for attending tonight. I had a great time presenting for all of you. And if anyone has any further questions, you know, you can feel free to reach out. My information is, I believe, in the integrative medicine flyer, and I can always be reached that way. Okay, thank you.